The paper we're diving into today is Book Review, The Monk Who Gambled on the Game of Life, Swami Satyananda, A Life Between Extremes, a brief summary, written by Suresh Soni. So, right off the bat, I have to say, this is not your average spiritual biography. It's equal parts personal journey and social critique.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the core question the paper keeps circling back to is, what does it actually mean to live a meaningful life if you're caught between the demands of society and this burning urge for spiritual fulfillment? Plus, it digs into a pretty loaded topic, the whole mess of God-men in India and how they kind of taint or even exploit spirituality.
Exactly. The protagonist, Swami Satyananda, born Satinder Soni, kind of embodies this tension, right? He tries different careers, has his share of family life, but there's always this discontent, this sense that something deeper is missing. Eventually, drawn by the hippie movement and the broader spiritual wave of the 1970s, he steps away from worldly life to become a sadhu. But it's not like the Hollywood version of enlightenment.
Not at all. In fact, if I had to sum it up, it's more like a cautionary tale than a success story. The paper outlines, pretty honestly, how Satyananda's renunciation comes with its own pitfalls: substance abuse, alienation, and eventually just fading into obscurity. And the big question is whether he was too hasty. Maybe he skipped that kind of, organic psychological readiness for renunciation, the vanaprastha stage that traditionally you're supposed to do before becoming an ascetic.
Yeah, that bit hit me. It's almost tragic. He reaches for spiritual authenticity, trying to revive Vedic wisdom, but society doesn't really respond. He doesn't capitalize on the God-man route, unlike so many others. Instead, he's left isolated and disillusioned. The paper doesn't just tell his story, though. It puts it in the larger context. How India, post-independence, has this explosion of both genuine seekers and, not-so-genuine gurus.
Right, and that's probably the most significant contribution here. The way Suresh Soni uses Satyananda's story to critique the commercialization of spirituality. The book draws this sharp line between people like Satyananda, who, for all his flaws, stick to their ideals, and the God-men who exploit the system for fame and fortune. It's like a commentary on how spirituality can be co-opted and distorted for spectacle and profit.
That hits home. Especially since, honestly, even outside of India you see versions of this, like all the enlightenment retreats on Instagram, or, questionable life coaches. Whether it's religion or yoga, authenticity is, constantly being tested, right?
Oh, totally. And wait, side note, but do you remember that viral video of someone allegedly levitating with hidden wires? It's so easy for people to fall for spectacle because the hunger for answers is so real. But anyway, sorry, I got distracted. The paper's strength is that it doesn't just bash the God-men. It actually shows how someone trying to do it for real can still end up lost.
Honestly, that layers the argument, right? The author doesn't shy away from Satyananda's personal failings. He gets into drugs, struggles mentally. He's not some flawless martyr. But that makes you reflect. We're all vulnerable to escapism, whether we call it spirituality, shopping, or just scrolling endlessly. The book, and this paper, invites us to ask, when does the search for meaning become avoidance?
I like that. And one thing the review points out is that Satyananda actually resisted commodifying spirituality. He wrote, he tried to reform minds, but, he didn't want a following just for fame or money. That's in stark contrast to, say, the more notorious figures we hear about on the news. The author wants us to resist lumping all spiritual practitioners together with the frauds.
Still, the paper admits there are gaps here. Like, it calls for government regulation to curb fraudulent God-men, but doesn't get too specific about how that should work. Or, for example, How to protect authentic seekers without infringing on religious freedoms. Maybe that's just not something you can tie up neatly.
Yeah, and maybe that's exactly why the story resonates, because it's unfinished, imperfect. Life doesn't always offer tidy answers, right? Satyananda's quest becomes a sort of mirror. Are you escaping, or are you searching? Are you following a path for yourself, or just for validation?
It's a really human narrative. I think, more than just a warning against being duped by godmen, it's an invitation to be honest with ourselves, with our motives.